This channel is Myths and Sagas. Here we explore the ancient figures who ruled the minds of the first civilizations, not just as legends, but as forces that built the world as we know it. And we begin where civilization itself began, in Sumer, with a goddess who ruled both desire and destruction. Before the Greek gods climbed Olympus, before the Norse gods rode wolves and thunder, there were older stories. Some of the world's first myths arose in ancient Mesopotamia, carved into clay tablets over 5,000 years ago. These tales spoke of gods who shaped not just the skies, but law, sex, death, and the very idea of power. And today we discuss a goddess who symbolizes that very nature. Her name was Inanna, and in the ancient world that name meant more than a goddess. It meant presence and power. Inanna was worshipped at least 5,000 years ago in the land of Sumer, in what is now southern Iraq. Her temples towered in the city of Uruk, one of the first true urban centers in human history. Uruk had walls, palaces, priesthoods, and Inanna at its heart. As the city's patron deity, she was enshrined in the great Inanna temple complex of Uruk. To her followers, Inanna wasn't just the goddess of one thing. She embodied everything that moved people: love, sex, fertility, war, justice, political power, even the balance between life and death. Inanna was young, bold, beautiful, and dangerous. When her name was spoken, it was with awe and with fear, stirring fire in the blood of her worshippers. She was a central figure in Sumerian religion, and the myths make it clear that her presence dominated all arenas of life, from romance to warfare. In the myths of ancient Mesopotamia, the gods formed a pantheon, a divine court of powerful, immortal beings who each had their domain: sky, wind, water, sun, etc., and who often engaged in cosmic power struggles. Inanna was part of this divine family, and like everything else about her, it's complicated. Inanna's mother was Ningal, a goddess of the moon and of dreams. Her father? That depends on the tradition. Some sources call her the daughter of Anu, Sumerian An, the supreme sky god. Others make her the daughter of Enlil, the god of wind and authority, and, in yet other traditions, her father is Nanna, also known as Sin, the god of the moon. If Nanna was her father, that would also make Inanna the granddaughter of Enlil, since Nanna himself was a son of Enlil. What matters more than the name of her father is the lineage. Inanna came from the high tier of the divine order, born into the ruling family of heaven. She was no minor deity. She had a twin brother, Utu, later known by the Semitic name Shamash, the god of the sun and the appointed judge of gods and mortals. Inanna also had an older sister, Ereshkigal, who reigned in the underworld. More on her later. As for lovers, Inanna had many. Her most famous lover was Dumuzid, later called Tammuz, a humble shepherd who became a king. In Sumerian belief, this union of the mortal king with the goddess was more than a romance. It was mythic politics. Inanna's embrace conferred fertility on the land and legitimacy on the ruler. Sumerian kings, in fact, performed ritual marriages to Inanna, often through her high priestess, to bless and affirm their right to rule. The prosperity of the harvests and the stability of the kingdom were thought to flow through her body and blessing. Together, Inanna and her divine kin belonged to the Anunnaki, the assembly of great gods who governed creation itself in Mesopotamian law. But even among these, Inanna stood apart, not because of her birth, but because of what she did with it. Most gods were given a single domain: the sea, the sun, the harvest, and so on. Inanna didn't follow those rules. She was the goddess of love, sex, fertility, war, justice, political authority, and even the cycles of life and death all at once. To the people of Sumer, this wasn't a contradiction. It made perfect sense. Love and war are not opposites. They are two forms of power moving through the world. Inanna represented passion, conflict, and life force in all their forms, unified in one figure. Her influence wasn't abstract. It was woven into daily life and statecraft. From the consummation of marriages to the waging of wars, from temple ceremonies to the crowning of kings, all invoked her name. Inanna decided who would rise, who would fall, and who would be remembered. Sumerian rulers often invoked her as a special protector. Inanna isn't the kind of goddess who waits to be invited. Her personality in the stories is fiery and multifaceted. She is impulsive, decisive, and utterly bold. She moves fast, speaks her mind, and acts with purpose. In one moment, she can be playful, seductive, even joyful. In another, she is ruthless and merciless to those who offend her. Her power and provocation are a defining characteristic in virtually every tale told of her. She can be generous, but never weak. And when she's crossed, her revenge is the stuff of legend. Several myths highlight Inanna's relentless and sometimes wrathful side. As the dispenser of divine justice alongside her brother Utu, she does not hesitate to destroy those who defy the gods. In one poem, when a mountain, the proud Mount Ebi, fails to show her due reverence, Inanna personally lays waste to it in a blaze of fury. In another story, a gardener named Shukalatuda violates her, and Inanna hunts him down across the land to exact unforgiving punishment. She even tracked and killed an old woman, Bilulu, in vengeance for Bilulu's role in her beloved Dumuzid's death. Clearly, betraying Inanna or incurring her anger was a fatal mistake, yet these fierce episodes exist side by side with tales of passion and humour. In hymns, Inanna is sometimes portrayed as a young woman in love, brimming with erotic desire and happiness. In The Courtship of Inanna and Dumuzi, for example, she banters and flirts, reveling in the joys of love. Inanna can tease and test her lovers, even Gilgamesh, as we'll see, but it's on her terms. She falls in love, but never submits. She can make mistakes or misjudgments, but she never stays small or ashamed. She always finds a way to assert herself again. Importantly, these are not contradictions. They are facets of a complex goddess. Inanna doesn't fit neatly into categories like good or evil. She is beyond such moral binaries, like the thunderstorm or the wildfire. She is a force of nature, capable of giving life and dealing death. To her followers, this made her real. Unlike some distant, infallible deities, Inanna was raw, radiant, terrifying, and vividly alive. She embodied the full range of life's energies, and that was exactly why they worshipped her. One story above all made Inanna unforgettable: the descent to the Underworld. This is the tale of how Inanna became the first being, god or mortal, to die and return from death. It begins with a bold decision by the goddess, one no other god had dared to make. Inanna sets her sights on Kur, the land of the dead. This shadowy underworld was ruled by her own sister, Ereshkigal, the queen of the dead. Everyone knew that no one goes to the underworld and returns, not even the gods. But Inanna doesn't ask for permission. Before her descent, Inanna prepares meticulously. She gathers 7 divine items of power and adornment. According to the poem, she put on a shining crown upon her head, lapis lazuli earrings on her ears, a double strand of beads around her neck, and a breastplate called "Come Man, Come" over her chest. She wrapped herself in a royal robe and clipped a golden ring to her hand. Lastly, she took up the measuring rod and line, symbols of her divine authority and judgment. Thus arrayed in her finest clothes and regalia, Inanna was ready. Just before departing, she instructed her loyal servant and advisor Ninshubur on what to do if things went wrong. Inanna told Ninshubur that if she did not return within 3 days, her absence should be noted and the gods should be petitioned to rescue her. With this contingency plan set, Inanna boldly descended to the realm of no return. When Inanna arrives at the gates of the underworld, she demands entry. The gatekeeper, a demon named Neti, is astonished. Why would the living Queen of Heaven want to enter the land from which no traveller returns? Inanna answers that she is coming to attend the funeral rites of Ereshkigal's late husband, the Bull of Heaven, who had died, a tie-in to another myth. Ereshkigal, however, suspects ulterior motives. The Queen of the Dead orders the gates of her realm to be bolted tight, then allows Inanna to enter, one gate at a time. At each of the 7 gates, Inanna is required to remove one article of her power symbols as a price of admission. Neti enforces this harsh protocol gate by gate. Inanna's shining crown is taken off, then her earrings, then her necklace, her breastplate, her ring, her royal robe, and finally her measuring rod and line. With each surrender, Inanna asks why this indignity is happening, and the gatekeeper responds, "Quiet, Inanna. The ways of the underworld are perfect. They may not be questioned." By the time Inanna passes the 7th gate, she has been stripped of all her worldly power. At last, naked and bowed low, Inanna enters Ereshkigal's throne room. She makes to seat herself on the throne, but the judges of the underworld, the Anunnaki, here acting as underworld judges, surround her and deem she has overstepped. They declare her guilty of hubris. In that moment, Ereshkigal herself fixes Inanna with the eye of death. She speaks a word of wrath against her rebellious sister and strikes her dead on the spot. Inanna's lifeless body is then hung on a hook on the wall like a slab of meat. The Queen of Heaven has been slain and literally hung out to dry. 3 days and 3 nights pass. In the world above, Ninshubur has been waiting anxiously. When Inanna does not return, the devoted servant carries out her orders. She goes to the gods for help. First, Ninshubur pleads with the high god Enlil, and then with the moon god Nanna Sin, but they each refuse to intervene, saying Inanna chose her own fate by venturing into the underworld. Finally, Ninshubur goes to Enki, the god of wisdom and magic, and Inanna's clever friend. Enki knows well how important Inanna is to the living world. He devises a plan to save her. Enki creates 2 special rescuers, the Galatur and the Kurgaru. In some retellings, they are described as 2 sexless beings or creatures, neither male nor female. Enki sends these beings down to the underworld with precise instructions. They slip into Ereshkigal's domain like flies and find the Queen of the Dead in a tortured state, moaning in pain as if she were ill or in labour. The Galatur and Kurgaru sympathize with Ereshkigal, repeating her cries and comforting her. Their empathy toward her suffering moves Ereshkigal's heart. In gratitude, she offers them a boon, any gift they desire. Following Enki's plan, they ask for the lifeless corpse of Inanna hanging on the wall. Ereshkigal, caught by her own offer, grants their request. The 2 rescuers then anoint Inanna's corpse with the food of life and water of life, miraculous substances Enki provided. With that, Inanna is revived. The Queen of Heaven lives again, brought back from the dead by divine magic and clever negotiation. Inanna is free to ascend, almost. As she prepares to leave, a horde of underworld demons, the Gala, cling to her, declaring that no one may depart the underworld without sending someone else in their place. They accompany Inanna back up, intent on seizing a substitute. Inanna, now alive and powerful once more, isn't about to let them take just anyone. The demons first try to grab Ninshubur, who is weeping in mourning. Inanna forbids it, since Ninshubur remained loyal. They attempt to take other attendants and family, but all are under Inanna's protection. However, when Inanna finds that her husband Dumuzid did not mourn her at all, in some versions he's found lounging carelessly on her throne, she allows them to take Dumuzid as her replacement in the underworld. Inanna's decision here might seem cold, but it has an explanation in later tradition. Dumuzid, Tammuz, is permitted to return to the land of the living for half the year. while his devoted sister takes his place for the other half, thus instituting the cycle of seasons, an ancient explanation for why vegetation dies each year and regrows. The descent of Inanna is, notably, the oldest known story of a god who dies and is reborn. It was inscribed in Sumerian long before the myths of Osiris in Egypt or Persephone in Greece, and millennia before Christian narratives of resurrection. Inanna was, in a real sense, the first deity recorded who braved death and returned. By doing so, she claimed a new kind of power, dominion not only over love, war, and life, but over death itself. This harrowing journey also humanized her. Inanna experienced vulnerability and loss, yet emerged transformed and triumphant. Her descent to the underworld has resonated through history as a profound tale of sacrifice, courage, and the promise of renewal. Our second key myth shows Inanna not as a dying heroine or avenger, but as a culture bringer, a strategist who uses wit and charm to expand her influence. This is the story of Inanna and Enki, sometimes called the theft of the me. It's the tale of how a young goddess outwitted an elder god to secure nothing less than the powers of civilization for her people. The story begins with a friendly visit. Inanna decides to travel from her city of Uruk to Eridu, the city of Enki. Enki is the wise old god of fresh water, wisdom, magic, and crafts, essentially the patron of civilization's foundations. He is also notorious for enjoying beer. Inanna arrives at Enki's magnificent temple, the Iabzu, and he welcomes his granddaughter with a lavish feast. As they sit together, they begin to drink. Inanna engages Enki in a drinking competition, cup after cup of the finest beer. Enki, delighted by his guest, grows warm-hearted and perhaps a bit careless. He praises Inanna, and she flatters him in turn, celebrating his wisdom and generosity. As the evening wears on, Enki, deep in his cups, decides to present Inanna with a magnificent gift. He brings out the me, the holy tablets or objects that hold decree over all aspects of Sumerian life. To list just a few of the approximately 100 me: kingship, heroism, victory, truth, goodness, justice, the art of lovemaking, the art of song, the art of speech, the power of travel, weapons, writing, crafts, music, old age, judgment, the courtesan, the priest, the temple, and the various laws of the land. Each me is essentially a facet of culture or society personified. Together they represent the entire toolkit of civilization. Enki, in his inebriated generosity, offers these me to Inanna as a gift, perhaps thinking she will take a few. But Inanna does not hesitate. She accepts all of them on the spot. The moment Inanna has the me in hand, she makes a strategic exit. Without waiting for Enki to reconsider, she loads the me into her boat of heaven and sets off back toward Uruk immediately. Inanna knows that possessing the me will elevate her city above all others and firmly establish her own glory. By the time Enki sobers up the next morning, Inanna is already well on her way home. Our third story comes from one of the oldest epics in the world, the Epic of Gilgamesh. In this tale, Inanna appears under her later Semitic name, Ishtar, the Akkadian, Babylonian form of Inanna, and we see another side of her, her pride and her unforgiving wrath when scorned. The episode is often called Gilgamesh and the Bull of Heaven. The scene is set in Uruk, after King Gilgamesh and his companion Enkidu have just returned victorious from slaying the monster Humbaba. Gilgamesh is handsome, strong, and basking in glory. The goddess Ishtar appears to him in her radiance and makes a bold proposal. "Come to me, Gilgamesh, and be my bridegroom. Let me be your wife, and you shall be my husband," she says, promising him great wealth and power as her consort. Ishtar offers Gilgamesh a lavish future, chariots of lapis lazuli and gold, pulled by supernatural beasts, a life where princes and kings bow to him, prosperous flocks and herds, and riches beyond compare. Gilgamesh, however, does not accept. In fact, he responds with shocking rudeness. He not only declines the marriage, but mocks Ishtar for her past lovers' fates. Gilgamesh lists how Ishtar's love has been a curse to those she favored. Which of your lovers did you ever love forever? Which of your shepherds pleased you for all time? He asks rhetorically. He recalls how she loved Tammuz, Dumuzid, only to doom him to yearly wailing, how she loved a vibrant bird but broke its wing, how she loved a lion, then dug 7 pits to trap it, how she loved a war horse, then forced it to gallop until it was spent and muddied, how she loved the shepherd who baked bread for her, then turned him into a wolf, and how even her own father's gardener, who once brought her dates, was seduced and then turned into a blind mole for spurning her advances. Gilgamesh then compares Ishtar to treacherous things. You are like a brazier that goes out in the cold, a back door that fails to keep out the wind and storm, and so on. In short, he calls her fickle and deadly, essentially slandering the goddess to her face. This outburst, heaping insults on Ishtar, is extremely dangerous, and Gilgamesh, in his pride, seems oblivious to the consequences. Ishtar is furious. Humiliated and enraged, she ascends to the heavens, to the throne of her father Anu, the sky god. Weeping with anger, Ishtar tells Anu that Gilgamesh has insulted her, recounting his cruel words. She demands that Anu give her the bull of heaven so that she can take revenge on Gilgamesh and his city. Anu hesitates at first. He knows unleashing the bull of heaven, a colossal supernatural bull, will cause devastating famine and destruction. He even warns Ishtar. Releasing the bull will bring 7 years of drought upon the land, and asks if she has prepared provisions for the people. Ishtar confidently replies that she has stored grain and fodder for just such an event. Seeing her resolve, and perhaps fearing her threat to break the doors of hell and let the dead rise, if he denies her, Anu consents. He gives Ishtar the reins of the bull of heaven, and she leads this fearsome divine beast down to earth to smite Gilgamesh. The bull of heaven wreaks havoc on Uruk. With each bellow, the earth cracks open. On its first snort, it opens a chasm that swallows 100 men of the city. On the second snort, 200 more fall into the earth and perish. On the third, the ground splits again and Enkidu himself is knocked down by the quake, though he narrowly leaps away from the fissure in time. The bull snorts and stomps, bringing drought, as its very presence causes crops to wither, and sending earthquakes through the land. It is a calamity incarnate, and it's exactly what Ishtar wanted. A terror to punish Gilgamesh's arrogance and kill his people. But Gilgamesh and Enkidu do not succumb. The two heroes confront the bull of heaven in battle. Enkidu manages to grab the bull by its horns from behind, while Gilgamesh faces it from the front. In a coordinated move, Enkidu holds the bull and Gilgamesh plunges his sword into the back of the bull's neck, between its horns, delivering the killing blow. The bull of heaven collapses, defeated. Gilgamesh and Enkidu offer its heart in sacrifice to the sun god Shamash as thanks for victory. The threat to Uruk is over. So who was Inanna, really? And why does she still fascinate us? In many ways, Inanna was a deity of paradox, embracing opposites and transcending simple definitions. She was a goddess of creation and destruction, of fertility and barrenness, of passionate love and fierce war, of tender intimacy and cold justice. She didn't fit inside a single label or story. Rather, she was the story, constantly evolving and asserting her central role. Inanna appears in more myths than any other Sumerian deity, suggesting her importance in the Mesopotamian imagination. She had an extraordinarily large number of epithets and aspects, reflecting how deeply ingrained she was in all facets of life. Inanna was worshipped for over 2,000 years, across multiple regions and cultures of the ancient Near East. In Sumer, she was Inanna, the foremost goddess of the early city-states. In later Akkadian and Babylonian tradition, she was Ishtar. identified directly with Inanna and continuing her legacy. The Assyrians so adored Ishtar that at one point they elevated her to the head of their pantheon, even above the traditional chief god Ashur. She likely influenced the later classical goddess Aphrodite of Greece, and by extension Venus of Rome, but also Phrygian Cybele and the Egyptian Isis. In short, Inanna was not just one local deity, she was a prototype and inspiration for divine femininity across the ancient world. However, it would be wrong to view Inanna only as a prototype for later goddesses. She was a unique figure with her own bold character. Unlike some love goddesses, Inanna was never merely gentle or maternal. She was always direct, assertive, and even aggressive when needed. Unlike many war gods, she was not just a destroyer, she was also a lover, a life-giver, and a patron of the arts. Her human-like passions, jealousy, love, ambition, courage, made her stories compelling and relatable. In sum, Inanna was not just a Sumerian love goddess or a stormy war deity, she was both and more. She seized power on her own terms, journeyed to the underworld and back, and presided over the very foundations of culture. In doing so, she became a myth not just of femininity, but of will, risk, and rebirth. Her enduring appeal lies in that triumphant blend of passion and strength. Inanna challenges and inspires, reminding us that even in the most ancient times, people imagined a goddess who could do it all, and do it fiercely. That was Inanna, goddess of love, of war, and even of the underworld. A ruler who didn't follow but led, a deity who descended into death and returned more powerful than before. Her stories shaped early cities, kings, and the very idea of what power could be. And even now, thousands of years later, she still speaks to us through those stories. You've been watching Myths and Sagas. Stay tuned for the next episode, where another god rises and another world unfolds. Did you like this episode? Then like and subscribe. Your support helps us grow and publish more content. See you at next episode, where cover another iconic figure in Myths and Sagas.